An awful lot of language being bandied about tonight, legally permissible, comply with EU directives, but the most important one, I think, is the price gouging. And the price gouging that's going on is the tax on tax from the government. All your colleagues behind you there tonight, Minister, said that they would go along with your measures. You know, you're actually robbing the people. As I said earlier today, Dick Turpin wore a mask. That's the price gouging that's going on. Tax on tax. Nothing new to be had from what you're introducing, except poverty. And it pains me to stand here, Lascian Corlett, to think no one in government is listening to a word being said. Practical common sense falling on deaf ears. And I may have appeared engaged in exercise this morning, but for good reason. I have people from every walk of life contacting me, telling me that they can't afford to go to their chemotherapy appointment once a week any longer because of the price of fuel. I have a message that I'll read from a carer I received. I'm a home carer for the Irish Wheelchair Association. My contract is 10 hours, yes, 10 hours. Most weeks I work 35 to 40 hours. I get 23 cents a kilometre, but I do not get paid for my first or last call, and nor do I get return mileage. So if I get the client or the patient up in the morning, I can't claim my mileage. I can't go back to them to put them to bed. I work from the north of County Wexford to the south of County Wexford. My average mileage is 250,000 kilometres per month, but I can only claim half of that. The cost of fuel has stopped me from doing what I regard as extra cover calls because I can't afford to keep the car going. It's now costing me money to stay in my job. I cry a lot because I know that there are people left unchanged in soiled beds, unshowered and unfed because of this. I implore you, Verona, there will be no home carers left if something isn't done. My 6 calls today will take me 9.5 hours, with driving time between calls, but I only get paid for 6 hours. And I don't get lunch, but that doesn't bother me. What does bother me is I love my job. I simply can't afford to keep doing it. Please, please do the right thing. Another one. Hi Verona, I'm a private small bus operator with 6 buses. Fuel prices increase have meant that bus costs have risen each bus by €120 a week. Total increase is 720. My runs involve 200 families, which means an extra €36 per family and rising week on week. My drivers want an increase because it's costing them more to travel to collect the bus. I'm losing money. I can't go another week and I'm looking at going bust. I don't wish to let 200 families down, but I have no choice. Government did nothing. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. Take care. And many businesses, Lascian Corlett, are on the verge of bankruptcy. The supply chain badly affected, but the biggest losers here will be the citizens on the low or marginal incomes as costs spiral out of control. The Ukrainian invasion has indeed compounded post-pandemic pressures, as has the inaction by this government to mounting inflation, which was already seriously impacting our rural communities, over and above our urban centres. No infrastructure exists, Minister, in rural Ireland as an alternative to using your car. And even though the tax comes from rural Ireland also, there is no public transport network. So if you need your car to go to work, but you can't afford to run it, you join the social welfare queue. And going back to this morning, Lascian Corlett, the response from the Taoiseach at leaders' questions was utter rubbish. And that's all we've been hearing for the past 2 days from people who have constructed a narrative to accommodate a lot of stupidity, a lot of nervousness from a lot of people, it appears, who don't know what they're doing. Then we hear from the Taoiseach. We heard the Taoiseach this morning give the leader of Sinn Féin a lecture in what you can and can't do within the rules of the EU. Well, I could have told him he was wrong, but I didn't get around to it. The Taoiseach's speech was a disgrace. He seemed to infer that Mary Lou MacDonald couldn't do any more. The fact is, he and his government can reduce the excise duties, the carbon tax and VAT as much as they like, and they can even go as far as zero VAT rates if they choose under EU legislative frameworks that are here on a national level. There is nothing to prevent you removing the excise tax, duties and VAT and carbon tax. But he's hiding behind the legislative framework because they don't know what to do, and there is no one with any vision or guts in the government to assist him in that regard. And since this morning, Ceann Comhairle, I've had an opportunity to do more research, and there is no reason. You can't remove all of the taxes and excise and VAT other than trying to justify a narrative concocted so as they don't have to reduce the VAT. Cock and bull, all of it, a diatribe if ever there was one. Your position, Minister, and your government's position will result in costing the taxpayer billions, because the increase in cost that will arise as a result from every other facet of government, such as the pay demands that will come from the civil and public service, pay demands from guards, teachers, nurses, all of whom will complain that they can't afford to drive to work. Then unemployment benefit payouts from those who can't afford to go to work. The increase in cost to getting children to school, the elderly going into nursing homes because carers aren't there because they couldn't afford the petrol or diesel that allowed them to be carers. Where has all this been factored into the calculations this morning that the Taoiseach put out? All we're hearing is a diatribe, no fact or legislation to support what the Taoiseach is saying. We are in exceptional times, which requires exceptional measures, and the treaties provide for exceptional measures to be taken in exceptional times. Government must get brave, Lass Ceann Comhairle. They better take these steps so as to avert a wider economic crisis. Stop the spin. Nobody has any confidence or belief in this spin any longer. Normal rules can be set aside in emergency times. Take the temporary emergency measure. Meaningful action is what's required, and need I remind you, Minister, if you don't, the result will have serious inflationary consequences which will be catastrophic for the people of this country. Remove the tax on the tax. Remove the excise duties, the carbon tax, the NORA and the VAT. Take the steps required nationally. Save our economy. That's your job, and if you can't do it, let somebody in who can.